Hi, everybody. So, as we go into the week where you'll be turning in your actual literature review, I just wanted to show you how, if I were you, I would go about converting the planner that I'd already done into an actual paper. So for you guys, check the announcements because I posted an explanation of how you can access your quiz again. So if you only have your answers saved in your quiz, you'll want to pull up your quiz and start using the things that you used in your quiz to transfer into your paper. If you did a paper planner first or downloaded the version that looks like this first, then you can also pull this up and use this as a document. But basically, it's the same thing. These questions that you see here, background and importance of topics, scope of literature, these kind of questions are the same questions you were asked on the quiz. What you're going to be doing is you're going to be using these questions to actually create your paper. So there's two documents that I have pulled up that I'm going to show you that I'm going to be working from today. If you just answered in the quiz, then you'll want to have that up instead. But if you go here to the planner and paper folders, you're going to see the review planner sample, the one that I wrote for you guys as a sample with all of the details in red. I opened that. And then here under paper, I've got the template for literature review headings open. So oh, and I've also got the APA Quick Guide for Commonly Used Source Types open because I've just had that open. So there's that. I think I just downloaded these things. So I'm going to go ahead and pull them up. I'll just do them again. Oh, wait, here we go. There we go. Okay, so there's the planner, and oh, I've got a couple versions of the planner now, possibly. Here's the planner, and here is that document template for literature review headings. So you can go ahead and download this document and just put your own information in it. Let's say you're talking about whatever you're actually writing your paper on. You can just change that right there. You can change the name to be your own, and then everything else here is ready to go. So when we look at this paper, this is the formatting with the subheadings already in place that you are going to want to follow. We don't, and if you look at the planner, it's pretty much straight taken from there. This is the title, and that's been put on the title page. And in APA, you don't actually need a subheading to say that the introduction is coming. You just write the introduction as the first paragraph. So you'll notice you do at the top of your paper, you write the title one more time. Instead of writing introduction, centered, bolded right here, you're going to have your title here again. You'll change this part to whatever it is. And then here, you're going to transfer over all of the information from these three questions. And you'll see research questions. Oh, research questions. Research review. Research review. Reflection. Reflection. And you can use this document or the blank one to kind of tell how that corresponds to the quiz questions. So it may not be broken down exactly into those sections on the quiz, but you answered all of these questions on the quiz. So you can kind of map them accordingly. So here's what I'm going to do. Right here, literature review. Okay. I'm starting my literature review, and my instructions are put in a hook that is so cool that everyone wants to read your paper. So I'm going to add in a hook. There will be in the announcement also a PowerPoint for you guys to look over for hooks that might be helpful. Ways to start your paper to get people interested, some techniques and some methods. So this is more background and importance, but I'm going to cut. Actually, it doesn't matter if I cut or paste or if I just copy. We'll just copy. Control C. And I'm going to put it right here. And I'm going to leave that because there's not really a hook here. So that's just a reminder to me that I need to come up with a hook. So I could have a statistic or a surprising quote, something for my research to just get people interested. Maybe a hypothetical question. And this feels like an especially relevant question considering most of us has been the last several months going to class in our pajamas from our homes. But so maybe this is my hook. Then I'm going to add in the scope of my literature section. And you guys are going to probably notice like that as an English teacher, I just can't help myself. So I wrote a ton. If you didn't write as much for some of these areas, you're going to have to kind of explain, add more, elaborate on more. This is going to be particularly true if upon looking at your feedback, I said something like, explain more, elaborate more. You're going to want to add in more questions. And then, okay, so then I have put together in order background and importance, scope of the literature, and objective of the paper. And just as a refresher about the scope of the literature, this is my explanation of the types of resources that exist. So you can see there are many articles on dress codes in high schools within the United States and in other countries. There are academic articles. There are fewer articles about this, and yeah, so I'm talking about how there are fewer articles that focus on actual college populations. There are more about high schools. This is my chance to explain the type of literature that exists because that gives a nice background of what the conversation is around this topic. Is it being talked about in news stories only? Is it happening? Are people looking at it in academic journal articles? Is this a topic that only appears in publications that are, 6 to 10 years old? The scope of the literature is a review of the types of sources and the different aspects of the sources that are available that you saw in your searches for these things. So if you're not getting any database articles, this is the place you would put it. If you're noticing that every article about this only focuses on a certain aspect, this is where you might want to mention that. When I'm looking over this, I'm going to go through and I'm going to say, okay, so here's the section that I cut and pasted in. And I might add in a transition. You can use first person occasionally in this article. First person, I, me, my. Occasionally, don't overuse it. And you want to avoid second person in this and all formal academic essays. So second person being you, yours, even like us and we. Don't use them. Okay, so I'm going to add in a little transition here. I don't even know that I really need it, but I'm just going to double check myself. So if you notice that it's a pretty rough transition between this idea, like your background, and then scope of the literature, or even between this is probably where I'm going to need more of a transition. You want to go back and add that in so that your introduction flows. So I ended with dress codes. Okay. Yeah. So, I guess it's okay. There are fewer articles focusing on dress codes. And what I'm doing is exactly what you should do. Read it out loud and see, does this thought move logically into this one? And if not, throw in a transition. Throw in a therefore. Throw in a as a result. As long as it makes sense. I didn't even check. Make sure it makes sense. Or even, if you need to add a transition, do it. I don't even know that I do. I might have written it so that I wouldn't have to, but just double check yourself. If it seems awkward to move from one of these sections to another, add in a little transition. Okay, so then down here under research questions, this is really important. Up here, you're going to have these numbered research questions. I'm going to turn this into a paragraph. So I'm not just going to replicate it by writing 1, 2, 3. I'm actually going to turn this whole thing into a paragraph. So here I'm really going to need to be adding my transitions and turning this into a piece of writing instead of just a bunch of questions. And you can see that now that I'm referring to these, I might switch the punctuation if I'm no longer asking a question. The first thing I wanted to know was whether there are dress codes in place in most colleges. And then here, I wanted to start at the beginning and find out if most colleges. I chose this question because I wanted to start at the beginning and find out if most colleges and universities even have dress codes. And then I'm going to move on to my second. Next, I wondered if dress codes were actually enforced. What did I say? And I'm gonna try and like actually turn this into a strong piece of writing. So I'm gonna make some changes. I'm gonna elaborate on my question. Next, I wondered if dress codes were actually enforced at institutions of higher. Okay. And then here, you know, and I've already said it, I wondered, so I'm going to check myself and I'm going to just start it with, it's not doing what I want. I'm just going to cut off that first part and I'm just making little adjustments as I go. If a college has a dress code, are violators actually punished? I was also curious about how they might be punished and by whom. So you can see what I'm doing. And at the end, I'm going to have a nice, you know, I'm going to say something like, finally, I was curious about the reasons. So I'm leaving the language intact, but I'm changing it less from a list of questions and I'm turning it into an actual paragraph. Ta-da! And now I have a nice little paragraph. Research review. I'm going to write the name of my source, or I'm just going to leave it saying source 1. I don't really care, honestly. So maybe I'm going to change it to this one. Just like that. And then it says your paragraph goes here. I'm going to make that paragraph by pulling the main idea, the relevance and significance, and the evaluation. In fact, in this case, I'm just going to do Control C, Control V, boom. So again, yours may not be as long as mine, in which case you're going to need to probably add, especially when we're talking about the main idea section, you can add in a couple more things. Write this main idea more like a summary. And if you're curious about summary writing, I did that review a couple announcements ago to remind you of what you should be including. The first sentence of your summary should always include the author's name, the title, and other rhetorical information. In this case, I included right there the name of the publication that it was in. And then here you can see that then I have the main idea. And then I have a couple other sentences covering the major points. That's what I want you to do. So that's how I went through and made this particular paragraph. And you're just going to keep doing that. When you get down to the reflection, that's going to be on you. Do you want to write this all as one big paragraph or split the two questions into two separate paragraphs? That's up to you. And then the conclusion, same deal. You're going to make a paragraph out of these things. And at the very end, your references. This should be on its own page, but you get the drift. So that's how you turn the planner into a paper.